Are you enjoying yourself? It's been a good conference so far? Many relevant new innovations? Excellent. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you really, really, really ready? Are you ready for digitization? Digitization is a word that's been around for a while. It has meant that process of taking things from analog to digital documents. But the digitization that we are in need of getting ready of is something new. As a term, it's kind of soared into our lives for roughly a year ago. It became a popular term somehow. Digitization is about changing the core processes in our organizations. Whether you are a company or a government entity or a hospital, digitization addresses those very, very, very core processes. And while it does it, it is highly disruptive. Key driver is pervasiveness of connectivity. But that pervasiveness of connectivity, we've been having that for a while. The real game changer is not just pervasiveness of connectivity, but the pervasiveness of connected things and connected people, and all of that coming together. Let me start out with one example. Couldn't think of a better example that has really taken things digital to a whole other level as Tesla. We all know Tesla. They're a new kid on the block. They're not just digital in the terms of how we use the car, the beautiful flat screens in the car, down the road, the ability to actually drive the vehicle semi-autonomous or totally autonomous, totally digital, but also the way it gets manufactured. There are so many sensors in a Tesla that produce data, and that data goes to the manufacturer's floor, and in the manufacturing process, that data gets used immediately. So manufacturing is no longer that old school physical thing. It has become something more. It has become something digital and something networked. But even in the way Teslas learn, did you know that if a Tesla learns in Canada that driving, that taking that curve a little bit too steep is not good for the car, that all of the Teslas learn that at the same moment? If you own a Tesla, it's drawing on the lessons from a Tesla driven in Canada or in California or wherever. That's amazing. Tesla is a very nice example, but there are plenty. Look at these names and take them in for a while. Think for yourself, how well do you know these names? You know them very well. But how long have you known them? Many of those names have just been around for just a few years, but they have all become common household names. More than that, they're not just common household names, and they're not just new kids on the block, but they have become the dominant players in their verticals. The next thing that stands out is that they have all not just risen very quickly and have become dominant players in their vertical, but they have done so by digital means. Take Airbnb. Airbnb doesn't own any hotels. But it just has a digital service, and it has become completely dominant in its arena. And it's changing the way we think of our own organization. As a commercial organization, digitization should affect how we look at the competition. If I were a bank, probably the traditional way of looking at competition would be to look at another bank. Is that bank having better interest rates or a better service desk for the customers? If you look at through the angle of digitization, I would be worrying for Apple and Facebook becoming my competitor because they have the interfaces with the banking customers. The phase of competition is changing quite rapidly, and it's affecting our organizations more than we can often imagine. Here's actually our chairman on stage, Mr. John Chambers of CISCO, and he was on stage at the Internet of Things World Forum, which we host on an annual basis. It was in Dubai, December last year. And he came up with his incredible facts, and I think this actually made quite a bit of an impression on many. It is expected that in 10 years, 40% of enterprise companies will no longer exist. 40% of enterprise companies will no longer exist. In the meanwhile, we are preparing. By 2020, 75% of businesses will become fully digital. However, only 30% of these digitization efforts will actually be successful. So what's happening here? What has gone wrong? Probably these organizations are in a process of making an attempt of being fully digital, but they have not been disruptive enough. They haven't pushed it to another level. The Shakespearean truth of to be or not to be in this age could then very well be, who are you going to Uber before you get Kodak'd? A lot of people feel it coming. However, while 87% of CEOs think going digital is crucial, only 7% have a real digital strategy today. We're looking at a huge gap, and that is pretty scary for many. Does it leave you uncomfortable? Think of it for yourself. It's actually quite okay to be uncomfortable. I think we've got to grow comfortable at being uncomfortable. And for most of us in this room, I think it's fair to state that most of us were born plenty of years BG. I was born in the year 29 BG, before Google. Google was founded in September 1998, so you can do the math yourself. But that means that with one leg, I'm firmly in the old world, and with the other leg, I have to step into that new one. And that goes for all of us. We have to be disrupting ourselves in order to get it right. And in order to do that, we have to sufficiently appreciate, if you will, what digitization means and where it comes from. What are the underlying principles that govern digitization? I could have probably a presentation of many hours where I would come up with a long list, but there are at least two items that I would want to share with you. First is the network paradigm. I'll explain what I mean by that. And the second one is the rise of the Internet of everything, the pervasive connectedness of people and things. Now look at this little history of the Internet. Take it in for a while. Connectivity, it's a beautiful gadget coming into our lives, early 90s. And then the Internet evolved. It started to enter our economy. We started to buy stuff online. Immersive experience, we got to have social media, and bingo, the Internet of everything. Do you like this slide? Tell me, do you like it? Be honest, do you like it? Actually, I really, really hate it. You know why? This is, I think, PowerPoint nonsense. It's such a nice way of actually looking back at the Internet and having it portrayed as something that grew very comfortable in a linear way into our lives. It didn't. The Internet was always disruptive. It always was disruptive, and we were never sure as to what was going to be next. We are a very big company. We build networks. 80% of all of the data worldwide runs through our routers and switches. That's pretty big. I'll give you a very scary thing to consider. We have no idea as to where the technology will stand in 5 years from now. We don't know what the dominant technologies will be. We don't. We don't have the crystal ball. That disruptive, the Internet is. That's quite amazing. In order to understand where that comes from and what type of organizational paradigm lies underneath, I'm going to take you even a little bit further into history. This is not a slide because it didn't make slides at the time. When do you think this was made? Can I hear numbers? 69. Another year? 1950s. All pretty close. 1962. And it was created by a man called Paul Barron, Professor Paul Barron. Mr. Paul Barron was retained by the Rand Corporation in the United States. And his job was to, pretty dark story, his job was to create a US defense communications infrastructure that would allow the United States Defense Forces to counter-launch in case of a first nuclear strike by the Soviet Union. Remember, in those days, everything was still industrial age. Everything was centrally organized, central production, central communications, and the whole model to the left here, that was the old telco switchboard model, one center. The issue with that is if you put one little bomb there, it's game over. You cannot respond. So what Mr. Barron came up with is the distributed design. You can route information and reroute information going from A to B as you deem fit. You take 50% out, it still works. It still continues to work. Now, I think it's obvious to most of us that that has been actually one of the parents of the internet. This whole way of thinking, this was actually created. This actually was one of the steps that preceded the creation of the internet. But more has come out of it. The network paradigm has come out of it as an organizational principle. You can see, especially in the past few years, in the past 5 years perhaps, how influential the distributed way of organizing things have become in our society. Quite strongly so. It has influenced not just the physical infrastructures or the internet, but even our services have become distributed. Our organizations, our companies. But right up to culture and psychology, the way we befriend, the way we organize ourselves in teams, colleagues. It's distributed. It's no longer one building, one set of colleagues. It's distributed. Look at how kids learn. Children are no longer learning in a strictly linear fashion dictated by a teacher. Learning processes have become truly distributed. The network paradigm, as a replacement of central organization, has become the dominant way of organizing things. There's a few results to that, few results associated with it. First of all, the demise of central control. I'll give you an example. You know pretty well, you know this area pretty well, financial markets. Financial markets have become so complex, so interconnected, so international. There is no one in full control of it. The only thing you can do is to be sufficiently resilient in case it goes wrong. And I think that goes for not just financial markets, but it goes for cybercrime, it goes for energy outages, anything you can think of. So that's part of our new way of getting organized. Now let's look at the other component. I shared with you there are 2 building blocks for digitization. One being the network paradigm, but the other one is the rise of the Internet of Everything. Every hour, 100,000 new objects are being connected to the Internet. Every hour. That is obviously not just your PC or your phone or your printer, but that includes outdoor light points, sewage systems, doors, wheelchairs, cars, car components, jet engines, anything that can carry an IP address essentially is getting connected, and it's happening at a tremendous rate of over 100,000 objects per hour worldwide. We're estimating that by the year 2020, 50 billion objects will have been connected, and 5 billion people will have been connected. We see a huge impact on manufacturing with 204% growth in IoT implementations. In just a matter of 2 years, over the years late 2013 till late 2015, we saw the internet traffic rise from 47 exabytes to 72 exabytes. I have personally a very hard time understanding what an exabyte is. I don't know about you. All I know is that it's a heck of a lot of data, and it's growing at that incredible number. But also look at the amount of sensors shipped, from 10 billion to 54 billion sensors shipped in just a matter of 2 years. And then the amount of people involved, the skills required to build this is 4-doubled in just a matter of 2 years. So with all of that, you can look at the internet as no longer that gadget that landed on top of a very old world, 20, 25 years, but it's become a new essential infrastructure. And a lot of questions are being asked as to who should own this, who should regulate this, and how do we secure it, how do we maintain privacy, and all of these questions. For sure, this whole network paradigm and the rise of the Internet of Everything applied is relevant for essentially every domain of society. Healthcare. Think of healthcare. In the old days, you were just dependent on this one doctor, and if this doctor on Monday morning had a bad mood, he might actually give you completely the wrong diagnosis. You'd be dependent on this one doctor. If you even think of it a little bit further, we've never had healthcare. We've only had healthcare as a term, as a word. We've been having sick care for centuries. We make it to the garage when it's too late. We're getting to a point where you can actually digest a pill and you get a readout on your health. You can start to self-monitor. We've got this start with Fitbits and things, but take it a little bit further. Sensors that you could actually take down. Now, a lot of people are deeply uncomfortable. Yes, we were all born way many years BG. But our children are going to appreciate it probably even much more than you will. Think of smart energy grids. The traditional way, industrial age way of producing energy is you have a big, dirty, coal-powered plant. It's sending energy to your front door. It's losing 40% of the energy as it gets there, and that's it. Now think of the distributed design that we apply to smart grid. You can actually generate energy wherever, whenever, on top of your roof or next to your home. And if you're not using that energy, you can feed it back to the network, and the energy gets consumed by the point closest by where the energy is needed, reducing the loss of energy. Here you see the network paradigm applied to energy. Learning, I already gave that example. Teachers are no longer a monopoly. They don't run that monopoly anymore. Teachers have become coaches to the learning process of our children. We have to advise them what information to appreciate and what not. But the learning process itself is so fundamentally distributed at this particular point. So this happens to be true for every company. Every country, every city is going to become digital. It is transforming the core processes in each of those organizations. It's resulting in new opportunities, but also challenges. And the overall impact of all of this is expected to be 5 to 10 times as large as the internet to date. So if you think that what we have all done in the past 25 years is pretty cool, you're right, but it's only the beginning. We're just starting on this journey of digitization. Giving you a sense of the opportunities here. I could have a much longer list, but just healthcare. 1.6 trillion US dollars of value at stake by delivering things in a digitized way. Cities. City digitization through automation of streets, outdoor light, but also smart buildings. Incredible 1.6 trillion US dollars associated with that. Transport, manufacturing, these are all examples of where the actual opportunities lie. So, are we all in for a golden future? Is it all easy? Are we all going to get there without a scratch? Of course we won't. All of it is not just disruptive, but it's also hard to get there. Ladies and gentlemen, these are a few conditions that must be met in order to get the Internet of Things and the whole process of digitization accelerated in a way that it works for all of us. And I'm going to highlight a few of those and be a little bit shorter for the sake of time on the others. But first of all, there is the art of connecting everything. I'm not going to go very technical on you, although this slide is very, very heavily populated with a lot of things that sound perhaps dangerously technical, but I'm not going to do that. But what I want to point out with this slide is a lot of things need to be figured out in providing the connectivity for the Internet of Everything that we are in need of for tomorrow, driving the digitization of our societies. And one of the key terms here in this slide to me is convergence. Convergence of access technologies. We need a lot of fiber. And luckily, Iceland has a lot of fiber. But you also need a lot of different access technologies. Obviously, 3, 4G, perhaps down the road, 5G, it's all great. But also city Wi-Fi, LoRa, new sensor protocols, you need them. Why? First of all, think of your city of tomorrow as a city where you have millions of sensors. those sensors are not all going to be powered by a strain of fiber. That's just impossible. And if you're going to apply a SIM card to it, that sensor and the whole license is going to be over $100 in price. If you use a LoRa protocol, and I'm not going to explain what it is, but a different type of protocol, an open industry standard, it's just going to be $3. You need all of these access technologies to get it right. You need particular access technologies for particular use cases. Building it into one architecture that is seamless, secure, based on open industry standards without any proprietary protocol. That platform allows for multiple solutions to be converged. And again, I'm taking this smart city example because of the complexity, and therefore it illustrates very well. Think of street lighting. Lights becoming dynamic because of sensors measuring movement. No movement, lights goes down. Electricity saved. Parking. It's a classic example that we like to use. A city like Paris, 40% of the traffic in an inner city environment like Paris is traffic looking for a parking spot. If you actually have a way of routing people in the right direction, allowing them to actually pre-reserve their parking spot, you're going to see a lot of traffic efficiencies. These are good use cases, but there are many, many use cases which actually do not carry a very strong business case. But you want to integrate them in a platform you're already building. All integrated, all converged onto one platform. Obviously, you're going to need a lot of intelligence on the edge of the network, and that's perhaps the only remaining technical thing I would like to add here. You're going to need what we call fog, intelligence on the edge of the network in end devices. Because if you're going to have millions and millions of devices and sensors connected, imagine that you're going to send all of that data to central data centers. It's going to be awfully messy. There are many situations where you want to do the analytics in the end device for plenty of reasons. And we're trying to power that as good as we can. These are the type of architectures. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the art of driving the connectivity of the Internet of Everything. Now, we've brought that together in a number of cities. Barcelona is one of them, where we actually powered use cases like smart lighting, smart buses, smart water, smart bus stops, smart parking, smart waste, all coming together on one platform. We've looked at what other cities we wanted to work with and that wanted to work with us, and we've expanded over the past 3 years into many, many cities. We've been doing a lot of work in Copenhagen. Perhaps if you heard of the Denmark Outdoor Light Lab, an outdoor environment, 26 light vendors, all connected. Go and visit Copenhagen. We're in discussions with the city of Reykjavik to build an Internet of Everything strategy for the city, together with ecosystem partners. Very exciting, and we really look forward to that partnership. Beyond the art of connectivity, another thing that I wanted to highlight is cybercrime. I think we're all pretty well aware that cybercrime is no longer the business of a bunch of 17-year-olds sipping away in a Diet Coke. I'm not a security expert. There's one of my colleagues who, roughly half a year ago, provided me with this information. And I did not know that there are actually pretty much fixed price tags for things that get hacked. So if you hack a social security number, there's a value attached to that on the market. The thing with cybercrime is that they too work from the network paradigm. They have been organized like the network paradigm. There is no central entity, a specter like James Bond, bunch of evildoers that you can arrest in one spot. They're everywhere, they're distributed. That's why it's so very hard to get. And even worse, many instances of breaches happening result in us not discovering it. In many cases, only after 6 months at best, we start to discover actually a breach happened. Actually, our chairman once joked, there are 2 types of organizations. Organizations that have been hacked and organizations that do not know that they have been hacked. If you're going to take that as a principle, if you're going to accept that the breach will happen in what you deliver, in what you create, the network that you have, if you're going to accept that, you're going to prepare differently. You're going to take security as a starting point, not as an afterthought, not with some lousy software that you land on top of a network, but in the network, in your design. And that's a fundamentally important thing. It's a mindset that that organizations need to have as they digitize themselves. So a little bit less extensive on the others, but standards is a very important thing in the Internet of Things. Without standards, we're not going to get anywhere. And in the past 1 or 2 years, we've really seen, especially in the industrial part of the Internet of Things, that those standards are emerging. It's a new business, ladies and gentlemen. It's a new industry. And with any new industry, there are no preset dominant players. All bets are off. You need new partners. You need all partnerships redefined. And that goes very much for us as well. We need to work together with a lot of partners. And not just big, but also small and startups. We're investing in incubators. We're investing in startups. CISCO's just made a $2.7 million investment in Startup Bootcamp, a network of mainly European incubators where IoT type of startups are being created. But also government. Government needs to be on board. In all of these digitization efforts, companies cannot do it alone. We need to do it together with government. And obviously, we need to understand where the actual benefits are. We're not doing this for the purpose of technology, but we're doing it for actual outcomes that are relevant to society, return on investments that we all wish to see. And you can see that mature at a very, very large pace at this particular point in time. Concludingly, I think we can all see, while there are many concerns, that the opportunity in driving the digitization of our society is an incredibly huge one. However, there will be casualties, and the question to you is, how do you ensure that you're not one of those casualties? How do you ensure you are Ubering someone else before you got Kodak'd? You need a vision and you need an action plan. I overheard this Japanese saying, I really love it. Vision without action is a daydream. However, action without vision is a nightmare. Understand where you want to go as an organization, whether you are a city or a national government ministry, or whether you are a fishery company. Try to figure out where do you want to be in 5 years from now. What does digitization mean for you? Build that plan, but don't wait too long, because digital Darwinism is very, very unkind to those who wait. So back to those questions that you can ask yourself. What will digitization mean to the core processes in my organization? What does the network paradigm mean if I apply that to the very processes and people in my organization? What type of new services would it result in? How do I do things differently? And a very important third point is move out of your silo. With whom will I be collaborating? Outside the silo of my vertical. Who will be my competitor of tomorrow? Think outside your silo. When all of that is said and done, I think we can all conclude digitization is underway. It's everywhere already. It's up to us, really, up to you and me, to embrace it. And in doing so, we have the opportunity to define it. Digitization is not like a bit of bad weather coming into our skies above our heads. It's something we influence. We, you and me, we are making digitization happen. Let's define it. Because digitization and the Internet of Everything is very much a critical ingredient in building tomorrow's successful, competitive, and resilient community and company. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.